Today, we are ranking the most broken players in all of FIFA history, and I'm joined by no other than Nepenthez, and we're throwing it back for the OGs. How are you doing, my brother?
I'm good, thank you very much. Thanks for having me on. I'm excited for this one, actually, because looking through some of the players here of days of old, there's memories come flowing back.
I don't know if you look at it like this, but I always consider FIFA 12 to FIFA 16 sort of the golden era.
Yeah, I do. I would include FIFA 17 in there just because of the first camps ever. But yeah, you're right.
It was just kind of that make and break. It was a lot of free flow, just a different period. It wasn't perfect. I remember the shielding. Do you remember the shielding in FIFA 17 was so overpowered? It was crazy. Like, people talk as if the game was perfect. I was like, hey, I mean, the better player won, I would say, the majority of the time, but I remember not being able to get the ball off people or being able to hold it with ease.
Yeah, I focused a lot on shielding in FIFA 17.
I mean, the games come and go. As for the rules, we're dealing with the most broken players ever. We have alternating picks. We cannot repeat players. And as a guest, you get to begin, Nepenthez. We're going to make a 10-piece between each of us, 10 choices. But you get to start us out.
Well, do you know what's interesting? That there's more broken players, I think, before, kind of like maybe FIFA 21. Because now it's just promo after promo after promo. There's so many cards. You don't really get that feel for cards anymore. I would probably argue that this is the most broken card in the history of any Ultimate Team. Player of the Month, Heung-min Son, the 84 version from FIFA 17.
Wow, great shout. That was the origin story of Sonaldo. That's kind of where it came from for us, at least. The Purple Sun, when you saw him in action, you knew what kind of game it was going to be.
Yeah, it's just going to be sway, wasn't it? And then it's interesting when you talk about also like people's favorite players. Because how you play as a player, and you've always been very good at the game, but how you play as a player really determines on who you think is bad. For example, like this year, he's not in my list, mind you, but I think Mikel Antonio is like one of the best strikers in the game. That like 92 rated card, because his power shots are broken. Yeah, every time I say that, people just laugh at me because, he's a 20k card on the market, but I swear by him.
Also, if it was as simple as reading the numbers off a page, if it was just newspaper numbers, you wouldn't need to watch anyone on YouTube. You wouldn't need to look at reviews. It's just not how the game works. And that's the reality. Look at even someone like Sorloff, for example.
Yeah.
92 overall. When he was released, we said maybe there could be something here, but as soon as you got in game, he moved a little bit better than you expected. The knockdowns were obviously on point. He's finishing with both feet. It was just another reminder that the sizable striker is in. This is the only year that I can think of where large strikers have been so valuable or almost needed. You kind of have to have at least one guy that can do something in the air.
Yeah, you really do. But I also think FIFA 19 was brilliant for big guys because the auto crosses to the back post.
I had nightmares about that. I will say that year you had to have still skill moves and some of the agility though with those big players. This year, because I look at Haaland, it's kind of clunky in some ways. Like, you're not gonna left stick dribble with Haaland and have a bunch of success, but he's just so dynamic in many ways. You have to build your team almost to defend against him.
Yeah.
I don't know where I want to take us for the first choice. I'm going with a player that I think you remember very well. It's an inform, which I cannot believe I'm saying out loud, considering informs and their value present day, maybe in the last 5 or 6 years. But Chikawi, that 80 overall, FIFA 15, first of kind of the double 5-star. I don't even know if he had items after that. I'll be full transparency. I don't have it pulled up in front of me. I feel like that was the year of Chikawi, and I don't remember a year after either. And it was FIFA 15 Chikawi. You needed him in your team. The body feints were just remarkable.
Yeah, he was good. Like, even just 5-star skillers, there weren't too many like back in those days. So even just having 5-star skills on its own was quite good. And he was around the time of like the silver Malapa card as well that had like 5-star.
Like, great shout.
But yeah, he was a banger. I started off as a skiller. It's kind of how I actually came up, but my old man fingers keep up. I remember, Otani. You like familiar with Otani, right? Man, he loved that card, man. He just used to like wax lyrical. Every time he'd jump in a call, he'd just be talking about him. So yeah, he's a beast.
This might be a throwback for the people. And you guys make sure to get in the comments and let us know what players we left off or guys that have really stood out for you. But I remember watching your videos early on when you were in the bar. You were at the back of the bar and you were recording videos, ultimate throwback. You can still find them online. You have to go back a lot of years, but I think that's where you started, right? Were those your first videos? Were a lot of the early ones were all from the back of because you were working, I think, another job while starting the
so
YouTube. Don't let me put words in your mouth, but I think
it's right. Yeah, I run pubs for a living, so I had this tiny little office, man. It was so small, like you could barely fit like 2 people in there. I didn't have much time at home, so I used to record my gameplay at home and then just take it to work, edit it, and then talk over it in the pub long before the days of live content. Yeah.
Who's your next choice? Take me through the next choice. This is gonna be, we're just going through memory lane.
My next choice. Oh, do you know what? He's one of my favorite players ever, and he shouldn't be because he's a Spurs player.
Yeah, I was about to say, you're going back to back.
I literally fell in love with him because of a little bit because of his football, but because of a team of the season that he got, I think, in FIFA 15. And it's Gareth Bale's Team of the Year SBC from FIFA 19. This card for me, like I had discovered in like kind of early January, just Team of the Year, the back post crosses that eventually turned into the El Tornado cross. And I remember like messaging the gameplay producer saying like, this is broken. There's this thing, like when I pop the ball up and then cross it, I score the header every time. And he was like, oh, we checked, like, you know, we run the numbers, we're looking at their kind of like lines of acceptable amount of headers per game on average sort of thing. And he said there's no problem. So I was like, fair enough. But Gareth Bale was a beast here because one of the things that you needed, along with height, you know, he's like 6'2", he had like 90 some odd jumping. And for some reason, I don't know if this was like placebo effect or what, but the Team of the Year cards and the Team of the Year nominee cards from that year felt like they had different animations for jumping. So he just seemed to jump way higher. And so I just scored so many dumb, stupid, broken goals with crosses to the back post from him.
It's wild when you look back at these items. I was just going through kind of Ultimate Team history. They would not be viable present day at all, and these were the best players, untouchable, because the weak foots or the skill moves aren't enough. Of course, we didn't have play styles, but you had traits, and it was just such a different period. I think we might have gone a little too far. It makes it where the game, bronze players don't matter, silver players don't matter, almost none. Rare golds, like none of them matter. So it's kind of, in some ways, maybe this is being just naive as an enthusiast of the scene, but it's a little bit of a bummer. I was always looking for hidden gems and secret players and ways to get chemistry and guys I could develop. I love what they've done with Evos, but I still feel like even the execution with Evos, so many of those players, and I don't know if you feel this way, by the time you complete the Evo, they're no longer as relevant or prevalent or active because they're not as if they're super quick to complete depending what the tasks are.
Yeah. Evos are a great function in the game. One of the series I have is taking the lowest rated bronze team in the game and trying to Evo them up. And I thought by this time of the game cycle, they would be competitive. I've literally still got some bronze players because they haven't been eligible in one playstyle plus being another Evo for the rest of the whole game cycle. So there's a lot of room for improvement, but I do think that if they get it right, or even if they just get it better next year, it can create that hidden gem feeling, because I actually have had a few players. One of my favorite players this year has been an Arsenal lady called Gio Quiroz. When Travella was massive at the start of the year, I managed to get her 5-star weak foot Travella plus with some crazy stats, and she was so good, like so far above any other player that was around at the time. But it was short-lived, like you say, because then a new promo came out and all of a sudden she's way below the power curve. You know, it lasted like a week at most.
That would be my only complaint. I love the idea and the concept of being able to take your favorite players. I'm an Everton supporter. We've never really had players that you get to use a lot in Ultimate Team. But if the items can't multiple Evo properly, or if we don't have enough choice, I didn't know there'd be so many limitations and restrictions to the choices and the players that you could actually put into certain Evos, and then you're just waiting on the next Evo that you don't know if it's coming or not. Here's some feedback for EA if you're watching the video. You're gonna see a theme today. I can tell. I'm going like super old school players. Nep's gonna have a little more of a new school touch on some of them. I want another 5-star skiller. We went with Chikawi to start. I want Ben Arfa as my second choice. It was the 81 overall, FIFA 13. Again, what I could do with this man, it was unbelievable. I mean, he was icon level good in terms of what he could kind of do in the midfield and burst through space or out wide on the wing. And if you remember, scoop turns were so strong, and of course the finesse shot. So certain skill moves gave your player the ability to go from basically walking or no pace to full sprint. So it would allow you to take players that didn't necessarily have 90 something sprint speed and really do something with them. And it made it really interesting if you were good at skills, because you could kind of burst through lanes of space, but in a natural way. And Ben Arfa had it. He was juiced.
Yeah, he was. Now that you say that about like new touch, it's not really new touch, personal touch of players. Like, I get really emotionally attached to players in this game. I don't know if you do.
Nope, absolutely. I was running off the charts with Balotelli this year. Both of his items, especially that 86.
Yeah.
You could Evo to an 87 where he had the 99 dribbling.
Yeah.
There was something special about him, and it just resonated with me, plain and simple.
That's how I play this game a lot, and because of the Road to Glory, I never have like a big account where I've got like a massive team going and dunk on people with. I always I'm grinding the team up, so I always get like massively attached. To players that wouldn't necessarily think were good. When you have players like Ben Arfa, I felt like everybody used Ben Arfa. And so it made me just not want to.
That's fair enough. I mean, he was that good. I guess when I'm going through some of my memory banks, I'm so connected to the guys that were, I guess, sort of meta at those points. And it reminds me of a nostalgic era that I really enjoyed. I always think of the footies tournaments and how much fun those were. What happened? That didn't have to leave us. That was just such a great element that I never heard a negative review, and we still think about it.
Well, funny you mentioned the footies tournament. There's 2 players. One of them I'm going to announce now as part of my list because of Ultimate Team. And Arsenal signed them both. And the first one is Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. And he had that footies card. And it was... What was it? There was him, there was Royce, and there was was it Blaszczykowski?
Yeah,
and
Kuba.
Man,
Yeah, boy. Wow, what a shout.
Yeah.
I have Aubameyang on my list, actually. This is the first one where we had a crossover.
Oh, well, there you go. But
yeah,
yes,
got him.
So I know he's had other really good cards throughout the year, but that footies card, I fell in love with him because of that. And then Arsenal signed him the next season, and I was so gassed, man.
What an item. Oh, man, what a throwback. Okay, so you've got Aubameyang your choice, or are you going to double dip?
But,
you could do a couple range choices if you want here.
I'll tell you, I'll let you have Aubameyang, because the other player that I also fell in love with thanks to FIFA, was Alex Lacazette. It was an 87 rated card, I beg your pardon, when he was still playing for Lyon, and it had 88 pace, 88 shot, 88 dribbling, 84 physical, 83 passing, which for that game, back in FIFA 17, that was close to icon, right? And he had 4-star, and he was different in game. And it was one of FIFA 16, I think, is where SBCs first came in, but it was the first time we ever had a card like this early in the game cycle. And there were some others as well, like Jonas SBC and stuff. This Lacazette card, man, when I tell you I fell in love with this man, I started watching Lyon in real life because I played with a guy in a video game. And so then, just like with Aubameyang the year before, when Arsenal signed him the next season, can you imagine how happy I am that he's come and he got a ones to watch the next year as well? So yeah, him for me is definitely one of the best cards of all time for me.
Do you remember with Lacazette, I think it was 2 years after, he had a foot miss edition in FIFA 19, I believe. That was similar to that. I think it was an 87 or an 88, but he wasn't that high rated, but he was also brilliant. I really miss foot miss. If you're watching this again, EA, certain promos, you had it. I loved the Scream promo. I thought that was just so much fun. I'm running around with Fellaini, playing striker, midfield, all sorts of weird stuff. I even liked the Movember, even though it wasn't a great promo. I just liked the idea.
Yeah, the idea was great. What was that? That was 5 physical on them all, wasn't it?
It wasn't a big deal for the promo, but at the same time, I can't have every player be a 99 overall or a 98 or a 97, 96. I can't have that. I need a little more separation. This is my personal stance. I also had the throwback Aubameyang. I had both of them on my list, the one that you kind of went with, and then also I was thinking even the I think he was an 80 overall when he was at Dortmund, and he had that really overpowered item. It wasn't high rated though. I remember all my headspace right now is so throwback that I'm not touching a lot of promo items, but I will have one. I want Ibrahimovic, and I'm going to take the FIFA, I think it was the FIFA 19 Ibrahimovic that you played in the center mid role as well, where he was a 92 overall, and he was, I know the item was brown.
Wasn't that his, it was a flashback, that one.
That was a flashback? Okay.
But I think that was released during Team of the Year as well, because I remember getting him and Bale around the same time.
I remember that item was usable, but again, to your point, more in a midfield type of dynamic. In some years, the body type was more important than the stats, and he wasn't really fast enough to play as a true striker at that point in time. So this was his way, or your way, of integrating him into a team, and he could still pass well. I think I'm gonna go with I'm gonna call it the first undeniable overpowered defender. And you let me know if you dated anybody earlier that you just think was, again, you didn't need to make another change. I think David Luiz in FIFA 12. It was just regular gold, but again, you picked them up. You never need to make a change. I was using that item in October, and I was using that item in July. I couldn't imagine that now. It's just not possible.
Man, you just... I had a list of about 15 players, and I've already gone off the list just through this discussion, but the Brazilians, just in general in that era, they were just all broken, weren't they? You had the starter pack of because David Luiz, even though he was low rated, he was still expensive back in those days. He was probably on about 6,000 coins, but you'd have to grind out about 40 games to get 6,000 coins. And Dede, the centre back, one of the classics for the channel for me. And I'm just looking at Dede's card now.
Wow.
And he's got crazy
that
stats.
Partnership, bro, was crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy partnership.
Yeah, but David Luiz,
Wow.
man, he was good in the game. He really was.
It was just different at that time. He never lost a header, if you remember. It
Yeah.
was just we always were joking that players with long hair had some sort of added benefit, and he was part of that group. This is well before the Ruud Hullets of the world. It was the David Luiz's is what you needed in your lineup.
Does it? He just looks awful, doesn't he? His card just looks awful, but
Yeah, he had 79 pace. Just put 79 pace, and
So-
I'm telling you, this guy was moving everywhere.
I was talking today about how, Van Dijk this year is so good and he's got the aura, people say. But I actually think it's because Aerial Plus is so broken. So I think he was just so good compared to every other attacker in the game because he had that, and that's kind of what made him there. Somebody had mentioned that like everything that's in the game now for kind of like playstyles was in the game already. Not playstyle plus versions, but playstyle versions as like the traits and specialities. I wonder what traits and specialities David Luiz had that might have made him like, just so good compared to anybody else in spite of his stats.
One, you're right, because it was all hidden. We would not have the
Yeah.
stat lines to measure. There's no way for us to measure. Even Virgil van Dijk, that let's say his gold item, the 89 overall, it's so hard to gauge because I just pulled up his stats. A lot of them still don't make sense. 66 acceleration, 59 agility, 50 balance, 72 stamina. These are areas that you would question, being like, how could this guy be usable? How could he be playable? And he was. So maybe there are some mystery numbers on the back end as well when it comes to even Virgil van Dijk, because the recovery speed is where I would bring him up.
He's good. I'm just looking now. I wonder if jockey is what helped a lot for him.
That's a good shout. But it wasn't a playstyle plus is the only thing. But yeah, that's a great. I think on the defensive end, for me, I believe that jockey is probably the most slept on of the playstyles. If you get that for a playstyle plus, the way that your defenders turn if you manually defend is different. Yeah, what's next? Where you we've got a lot of options. I'm looking at the board. The board that I created is like I got a lot of like choices.
Do you know who I'm just gonna go with? I'm just gonna put him out there because he has to. People are probably screaming that he wasn't somebody's first choice. But like Ronaldo, CR7 he's just always had the most broken card in the game.
I was trying to figure out, and I had this conversation maybe a couple months ago, what was the best Ronaldo that we've ever seen. I always think back to the Ronaldo in FIFA 19. I think it was the team of the season, because the game had ended up being this fast-paced, a lot of offense. Remember, all the goals were scoring, and then the back post crosses, the headers, and what he was able to do. I don't know if that's his best version, but that one always stands out. The
Maybe one
99 overall. Yeah, it might be one for some more discussion board. But you're right. He hasn't had a bad item in 12 to 14 years, maybe 15 years.
Like a lot of the reasons why it was rumored anyway, why like Messi was never good in the game compared to Ronaldo, and I think it does come down to like the way the game plays and what type and stuff like that. But it's because Messi was always like the PES ambassador, kind of got like dunked on by EA, and Ronaldo, they're like golden child. Now Mbappe's there. Mbappe's just crazy every year, isn't he? That gold Mbappe, even this year, he was like every single gold card was like 100,000 coins or less. He was still like 1.4. Like he was just different.
I've been on record with this. He's the best gold item we have ever seen in any FIFA installment.
Yeah.
I mean, you could use the 91 now. I mean, he wouldn't be as good, but I could play a full weekend league and he'd still give me 20 goals.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, good luck making that case for other players. At some point, somebody's probably going to have to take that gold Mbappe. But I'm going to go ahead and bring out a Barbo. I mean, Barbo was that guy. Probably the most juiced attacker, or right there. I don't know if there's a more annoying attacker to go up against. I'm thinking throughout the past decade of FIFA history. We had a Roma edition that was a little higher rated. That was also gross because you could combine them with
Gervinho,
Gervinho and
Dumbia.
And Dumbia. That was a frightening. Oh my goodness, what a triangle of just doom. You hated that.
So I had a Barbo on my list because he's just one of the greats, and it's interesting that other than your David Luiz have mostly gone for attackers. One of the ones that I found on like an Barbo level, I did a series where I tried to go as many games unbeaten as I could on a brand new account. I got to like 68 games, and I had my main team that was like Ronaldo, Conceição, like Pepe, Ramos, like a big La Liga team, like full of the La Liga greats, and it was real easy. But back then, fitness cards were expensive, So I had a fitness team that was like just cheap OP beast, right?
The kids will never understand that.
They
We had two
were-
teams.
Yeah,
Hold
we
on,
had to
explain to them why we had to have two teams. Because like I forgot about that. They will never know. Nobody will never.
So back
If
in the
you just
day,
started playing in the last 5 years, you
Yeah.
don't have any idea what we're about to tell you. I hope there's
Yeah.
a graphic or something. I'm gonna throw it on screen while Neb's talking. Go.
look, I think about 4 years ago they removed fitness cards, but before that, fitness cards used to be in the game. And before champs came and like rivals and packs were easily accessible, you couldn't get packs. There wasn't packs. You had 5K packs, 7.5K packs, 15K packs as a promo, right? That's all there was. So fitness cards were scarce, and that's why the bronze pack method was so good. Because if you got a rare fitness card, like a squad fitness card, you'd make like 3-4K off of that, like 400 coin pack. So what people did, because everything was too expensive, is they'd have their main team, you'd run them down to like, you know, maybe like 80, 85 fitness, which would usually be about 3 or 4 games. Then you'd put them on the bench and put your second team in, and then you just run them for 1 game whilst your main team got the fitness back on the bench to save yourself like 3,000. One of the best ways to make coins was buying fitness cards in the week when there was no demand for them, and they'd like 3x at the weekend. Just sell them all on. Yeah.
Trading Monday trades, baby.
Yep, it was good stuff. So from
funny.
that though,
That's so funny.
from that I found one of my greatest all-time players, and that was the gold Gabby Agbonlahor.
Oh.
From I think it was FIFA 12, it might have been FIFA 13. Like he was just different. He like you know, certain players this year, they just feel faster than they are. Like he was one of those guys. Even back then, like doesn't matter his fitness or anything, he just felt rapid compared to everybody else.
I had a Agbonlahor on my list. And
Ah.
I had the FIFA 13, which was actually a 74. It was a silver. For me, that was the dangerous version that I remember. But he had multiple years that he was, to your point, just more explosive. If you wanted a through ball merchant, it's so funny. But yes, you would go after Agbonlahor as your top tier option.
I never would have thought you would have had him on. Like I'm looking at my list thinking, yeah, I've got some like unique picks here, and he was one of the ones I thought, yeah, there's no way this is gonna be a crossover.
Man, I mean, I'm telling you, I'm really old school. Like with some of these choices, really old school with some of my selections. Like I wouldn't feel right even as a next choice here if I don't get a Brasilver in there. And my favorite Brasilver to use was Calvin.
Yeah,
And again, I don't even know what happened later on in his career. Oh, actually, FIFA 13 Calvin or FIFA 14, they were both basically the same item. I remember him just destroying people for me.
Oh, it might have been when they lost the rights to the Brazilian leagues. He's probably still playing.
But he was in the
Brazilian league.
Portuguese league. Yeah, he went back to the Brazilian league.
Yeah.
Sure, that's what happened.
Yeah.
Because he was young. He was young because he was one of those players that had, again, the skills. And
Yeah.
you could make highlights like you would not believe in some of these old games. You could shoot from 40 yards out. It wouldn't go in often, but when it did, you had what you were looking for. There was a lot of crazy goals you could create.
Well, so there was, but I went back and watched one of my old skill montages, which is a big mistake because for its time, it was really good. Like the skill moves were really good, the plays were really good. But in today's world, half of the course, isn't it? But players like Kelvin, yeah, they were, and again, those Brazilians, man, like you said, like you could take a Kelvin then, and you could win Division 1 with him.
There was quite a few of them. I would have said maybe 6 or 7 that were really top tier, and then you'd fill in the gaps for the rest of the guys.
Jobson was the first ever player on any Ultimate Team that I ever got 100 goals with. And he inspired a series that I did called 100 and Out, where I just took random players to score 100 goals with them. But on that whole Brazilian line, when I used to like promote coins and stuff in FIFA 12, I worked with this guy, and we used to promote it through like PMs, right? I'd just be like, you guys want to buy coins, just PM me on YouTube. And so this guy would like, I'd PM him back and be like, yeah, this guy wants this many coins, like this is hard to buy or whatever, and that's how it worked. Dude, back in the day, I don't know how he used to do it. I'd just log into my account some days and I'd just have a million coins in my account. And I logged in one day and I had a trade pile full of this Brazilian silver card that was worth like 1 million coins. Because I had so many of him, I sold some and I used one. And his name was Maicon Liete.
Oh, I was just gonna say that. Do you remember the inform? He had the inform as well. The
inform
the
is
stats
what I had,
barely changed, and he was so much better. It made no sense.
Yeah, and he's on my list, man.
Oh, I was gonna say that right after Jobson. Not on my list as a choice, but just like in this discussion. So you're taking Maicon Liete. I love that she went that direction. Okay, awesome. Do you remember Nilmar?
Oh yeah.
83 overall,
Yeah.
FIFA 12.
Dude, wasn't it Nilmar and Neymar together, like in everybody's team?
FIFA 10, 11, 12, and then that's it. Wrap.
Yeah.
But that 83 with Villarreal was unbelievable. And those stats are like equal, if we're dealing with inflation, to a 95 or 96 overall now.
Yeah.
At least.
Yeah.
At least.
Having 92 pace and 86 dribbling on a base gold back then, like that's team of the year level.
Yeah, even 77 shooting. That's so much higher than what's normal in these titles in these years. So Nilmar's on the board.
Honestly, sitting here talking with you, like I've got about 8 video ideas that I'm going to be making now because of this.
I feel a glow from you across the camera, by the way. I feel like you're very happy recording them. There's a lot of sentimental feels when it comes to some of these games and the players, because I also agree with you. There's an attachment, but also what I was doing in that moment of my life and so forth. Like it brings me back to a lot that was happening in FIFA 12 and in 2012. Just as a context, full circle.
There you go. Mate, I agree with that. So I'm going to throw in, I want to say the most broken defender we have ever had.
Can I write it on a piece of paper to see if we're going the same way? All right, just one moment. If Nep doesn't take this, I'll take it next. All right, you're good to go.
Smalling. Chris.
Ooh, okay, we're going a different direction. We'll see.
Yeah, for me, that Chris Smalling, but FIFA 17 was like a year that obviously EA introduced champs, so we got like red picks, and you know there was a few more promos, and like cards were a bit more accessible. And even when people at the end of the game cycle had loads of big icons in their team, because like on SBC, everybody still had small. That gold 84 thing was just different.
And that was Smaldini. I don't think there's another portion of that story where it came together. That's
it.
It didn't actually make sense either. It kind of reminds me of, it's not going to be my choice, but Varane didn't make sense for quite a few years.
Yeah, he was just too good, wasn't he? Yeah.
I couldn't measure it because I could take those same stats and other players had, you know, I guess good front end speed and no turning, and they were horrific center backs. And then you have Varane, who didn't follow any of the rules at all. There was no guidelines. I think his balance was also like 30s, 40s, max 50. It was terrible. It was a terrible combination. He couldn't pass, at least on paper. He couldn't do any of these things. But you get him in game, and didn't matter. Everything was perfect.
When I said like the undisputed best defender in the game, that you didn't think of the same one as me, I'm very intrigued as to who you have.
Well, listen, I think I've got it covered. For sure. I've got Mendy, the 83 overall. I don't think we've seen, outside of maybe some Virgil van Dijk arguments, he might be even better than Virgil van Dijk. That 83 Mendy from FIFA 21, I could have played him in July. It makes no sense. I get it, but I'm telling you, I don't even need an upgrade. Even the year that he had the, do you remember the foot miss? It was so overpriced. Or we thought it was overpriced at the time. He was like an 85. That guy was endgame. Endgame in December.
I remember getting ridiculed in recent years because there was a Mendy card that came out, and it might have been that one. I played him in the center attacking mid. He's got good stats for a cam. Like he hasn't got good shooting, but everything else is like decent for a cam, especially back then. And I think I don't want to throw somebody under the bus, but I think it was like Run the Foot Market Nick mentioned that I'd said that, and I just got roasted from like so many people for wanting to play him at cam.
I'm not mad, no, but that was the error. These guys won't get it. You were playing guys all over the place, all sorts of odd roles, and it was fine. It still worked if they had enough know-how, because the stats, they weren't as strict in certain ways.
I think how many spots we got left? Two
left.
I'm gonna do anyway. A goalkeeper.
There's only one that you could choose for that. There's only one.
Well,
There's only one.
You have Jack Butland.
Oh,
you have,
okay.
You have
right.
Pope.
You don't. Butland's not your choice.
No, Butland's not.
Butland's not
either.
your choice. Wow.
And then you had Pope that was overpowered.
That 82 Butland's got it. That for me, if you're thinking goalkeepers, that's the one that just off the page.
The goalkeeper that was the most broken for me, and it's because he had a trait that nobody else had during a game where low dribblings were broken, and that's David De Gea from FIFA 17. He had the saves with feet trait. Is if you abuse those low dribblings with like the player of the month Son or whoever it may have been.
Everyone.
He saved them every single time. And so it was really, really frustrating. Whenever you saw somebody come up, you come up against someone in champs and they got David De Gea, you're hoping that they don't. You're hoping that they've got him because they just happen to have him and not because they know that he's got saved with feet trait.
We're trying to find every margin. I was still competing at the highest level too in FIFA 17, and every goalkeeper became the question. Do they have save with feet trait just because of the value of those low drivens, like you're saying? I don't think I'm giving a goalkeeper. We're going goalkeeper list. Kind of already teased the Barbo Doumbia thing, so I'm going to leave that alone. But we're going to go get Emenike. And Emenike in I think it was the Russian League in FIFA 13, that version. If you wanted more of a physical striker, this was your number one choice at that point in time. And I think what was so annoying with Emenike is in those errors, a lot of chip through balls. And if it was a 50-50, because of his strength and just explosiveness and having that pace, he would win them. He would win them all day. It doesn't matter who the center back was, generally speaking. Emenike always had a little bit of an advantage. It felt like if you went to the casino and they say the casino has an advantage. When I had Emenike, I always knew the offensive player had an advantage.
FIFA 12 card is upgraded one. There's 83 pace and 84 shooting. 79 rated card. That is insane.
So I was right. FIFA 13 is the one I had 90 pace, 78 shooting, 77 dribbling. And remember, dribbling doesn't matter at all. That stat is almost... I can't explain it. It just, the game's played so fast anyway. It wasn't as important. All right, last choice, Nep. What's it going to be?
My last choice. You know what? I was just thinking there, like, man, the lack of Arsenal players is quite wild for me. And like the fact that Henry isn't in there, Ian Wright isn't in there, like two of my favorite players of all time. But again, when it comes to FIFA and FC, like the emotional attachment is the one for me. And I talked earlier about how Dobson was the first player I got over 100 goals on. This player was the first player I ever got over 1,000 games on. In another world, he would be regarded as like the best player on earth. And that is the FIFA 17 Hazard player of the month. It was month 1. He was like 91 rated or maybe 92 rated, and he was crazy. Like, he was still good in team of the season. And I just remember like rocking game after game after game with him in my team. And no matter what SBC came out, no matter what promo came out, always tipped the scales. Yeah,
Hazard is maybe part of that same group of one of those players that had everything. You always heard he didn't have the work ethic. I don't know if you've heard that, but I've always, every time I've seen an interview, they said Hazard kind of just showed up. But what he gave at Chelsea, pretty remarkable.
Yeah.
Another player where I feel like you knew what he was going to do, but you couldn't stop it. And I feel like that watching Messi is there's no one that is watching at home saying, I don't have an idea what's going to happen here. You just can't get in front of it. You know, slice, dice, a couple fake shots. That's what he had. But you couldn't deal with it. You just couldn't deal with it. I think my last choice, and maybe we're going to have some discussion at the end of this, but before Conte, there was only one midfielder that did it. And we'll go back-to-back Chelsea to close it out.
Yeah.
Ramirez has to be there.
Yeah, he's on my list. He is on my list. There is one other midfielder that does also get up there with Ramirez and Kante, and that is Renato Sanchez.
Wow.
His Bayern card was it was alongside them, but it fell off when he moved to Swansea. I don't know what EA changed, but he wasn't so good that year. But yeah, Ramirez, he is like, I was looking through the Ramirez cards and I thought, you know what, just any Ramirez was broken. Even these new hero Ramirez cards, they're all like crazy good.
Those aren't better than, I think it was his FIFA. I remember the FIFA 13 and 14. I think he had an 80 or an 81 between the 2 years.
Yeah.
But you just, again, he was so much faster. Never was tired than everyone else kind of in those positions. So once you had him, you were good to go. And then, you know, another guy that's a throwback, Sturridge. Again, if you're going Premier League, you would have Sturridge, Remy, Ramirez, David Luiz were all guarantees.
Yeah.
Oh, you know, Nainggolan had a couple items that were nice.
He did have some big cards. Yeah.
And also, when I think of broken, I don't know if you look at it like this. I often think of players that went so far beyond what you expected.
Yeah.
So when I look at some of these guys, I didn't have the expectation that this would be possible, and they had it. They had whatever it is. You mentioned it earlier, but Dede and Felipe Santana. You know, we didn't talk about either with the non-rares when Draxler and Kevin De Bruyne were both non-rares.
Oh man, yeah.
Ooh, that was something. Anyways, this is through memory lane. Thank you so much for coming on. I'll link everything around Nep's channels and outlets, of course, down below. I think all of you already will follow him. If you follow me, definitely follow Nep, I feel like. But I really appreciate the time that you took on this. I kind of
it's good.
Was a rerun of memory lane, and I couldn't think of a better person to do it with.
Well, I appreciate you. Thanks for having me on, man. Like, you know, you said this to take 30 minutes. It feels like it's taken 5. So
it's actually taken an hour. We'll see what this video gets edited down to, but I'm not mad at the recording. I think we have so many different discussion points. So I appreciate you. And as always, guys, I have a lot more content coming out ASAP.